Welcome in, everyone. RFK Refugees podcast. Ted here, John here. A surprisingly positive, maybe, RFK Refugees podcast. Maybe some outside on the field stuff, not so positive. But so far, it's been fun. It's been fun, John. How you been, my friend?
We're the preeminent Leagues Cup podcast on the internet. the biggest fans. We've always talked about how good the Leagues Cup was and how much we think it's really important. And this is all coming. It's coming to fruition now. I think you put the work in on the back end so that you can reap the rewards later on. That's what we've done.
Yeah, I think we can say. I think we can say without satisfaction that Leagues Cup should be the actual MLS Cup. That should be the top championship.
I agree. Cancel the rest of the season. Only all games. What if they made the entire plane out of the black box? What if all of MLS was the Leagues Cup?
Exactly.
That's my question.
Exactly. But the Leagues Cup definitely has its flaws. We can talk about it. There's been protests, against the U.S. Open Cup. The tournament is what it is. Right now, DC United is participating in it, and maybe surprisingly still participating in it. They qualified, of course, for the knockout stages. We'll get into that in a minute. But first, John, how you doing, my friend? How was your week been, man? It's Friday.
How was my week? Yeah, we're doing the weird. I don't think we've ever done a Friday show before. This is new. How was my week? My week was pretty good. I can't complain. I'm going to be going in Louisville next week, which is why I think we're recording right now. Mm-hmm. When is it coming out? As the listener hears this, are we going to put this out tomorrow, or are we putting it out on Monday?
We can put it out. I think we can probably put it out tomorrow and just let the
Saturday.
Weekend, right? There's no
Sure.
DC game. There's no Spirit game. The Spirit are on break while the Olympics perceivably wrap up. We have no Spirit games to talk about. We probably will have no game on Monday to even talk about. So this is the perfect time to record.
I agree with you.
Post Leagues Cup group. Don't know our opponent yet. That'll probably be known on Monday. Who our round of 32 opponent will be. But
you and I will be surely tuning into the live ball picking. I'm sure they're going to broadcast it, and I'm sure as the two biggest leagues. I'm kidding. How the seating goes. I am making a joke. How was your week? Now that we're here on this Friday evening podcasting, how was your week?
It was good. It was busy. Work was busy, and it's just been it's been a week. A lot of traveling and doing other things and bouncing around places and still working, which is not as fun.
The hardest part?
Yeah, it's not as fun. But yeah, and the soccer's been good. It's been a litany of, I don't know if you've been like just gorging yourself on soccer. I saw a meme. I don't know, the Simpsons where Homer Simpson's eating the steak, and he's just gorging the steak, and then he gets to the point he's like, I'm so full, there's food on my plate, but I don't want to eat it. That's kind of how I'm feeling with the soccer. It's been a lot to watch. We still got the women still in the Olympics. The men, of course, crashed out. Former DC United players, Kevin Paredes, Griffin Yao, showing some good stuff. That game against it was Guinea? Was that Guinea or Guyana?
I thought it was Guinea, but
it might be right. Maybe it was Guinea.
Someone will correct us as you do.
Yeah, but looking really good. It was kind of interesting to see Kevin Paredes and Griffin Yao out there looking like they were back with the DC U16s tearing it up, and that made me feel happy and sad at the same time. I think is the right word to say it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm glad that it happened. Be glad that it happened, right? Isn't that what
but yeah, I don't know if you had a chance, if you've probably been watching much of the Olympics or...
I've been watching a lot of weird Olympics, to be honest with you. I've not been watching the Olympics that are relevant to this. I've been watching 3-on-3 basketball, trampolining, all the weird stuff. All right, I'm gonna talk about this on the air, and I'm gonna be made fun of. But I thought of this, and it made me feel really old. This is the most get off my lawn moment. I kind of wish I hadn't brought this up, but I'm going to talk about it now because I brought it up. It bothers me that the skateboarders can listen to music while they compete. And it's not music that's pumped out. They get to play their own. They have a little Zune, and they have their little headphones, and they just rock it out to whatever they're walking. And you don't tell me other players would love to have music, but for some reason skateboarders are special and they get to wear their own head. They get to DJ themselves. Explain why.
Gymnastics, the floor routines are all done to music.
Yeah. So they let everybody hear it, right?
Yeah. Okay. So I can see your point. So they could let everybody.
It's just weird. It's just strange. Why do they no, you need to be self-contained. You're listening to profanity music, I bet you. Yeah. And it's also, they're doing 20-second trips. I saw they'd put on some music and then they would try a trick and fail within 17 seconds and then have their headphones up. I'm like, what were you listening to? Were you listening to the start of a song? Because it's not over yet. Anyway, that's my get off my lawn moment of the Olympics. And I'm sure people will make fun of me for that because I've not heard anyone else talk about this, but it annoyed me.
I'm just surprised. Like the amount of like sports is just kind of ballooned.
It's kind of too many. I think it might be too many sports.
Yeah. But
rugby's awesome. Rugby sevens is very, very cool. I'm really enjoying that.
The women's it's over now. Now the women's event, women of course getting the bronze medal. That was fun. Anyway, people didn't hear. We already get complaints.
Maybe they are.
About
Maybe they did.
we already get too many complaints about yapping about other sports as we hear a child.
Oh, you can hear that. Cool. Yeah. Excellent. Good. I was curious.
Oh, this show's off to a wonderful start. All right, let's talk DC United. First, before we get into the games, let's talk about the news. The not so good.
Oh, you're talking about the most important news about LAFC acquiring Louis O'Brien for $50,000. Was that the news you were going to talk about? Because that's the news I want to talk about.
Okay, let's jump into that.
So DC United had right of first refusal of Louis O'Brien coming back to MLS, which I think probably when they claim that clause, they're like, he's never coming back. That's not going to happen. But it turns out that is it Nottingham Forest that owns him?
Yes.
And Nottingham Forest does not know what to do with this man. And he is once again being loaned out, but this time he's going back to MLS, but not to DC United, to LAFC for $50,000 in GAM. And I think we were talking about it on Discord, and someone's like, get rid of Jackson Hopkins, and you said that would make John very sad, and it would. But I would drive him to Dulles if we were getting Louis O'Brien on a loan with an option to buy. And I think probably this time maybe a more realistic option to buy. Maybe now that they've like gone through this rigmarole a couple times now, and it's not like he's a real prospect that we think is a Premier League player. Like clearly, that's not where we're at right now. So yeah, what do you think about him coming back?
I think it's a shame that I guess he isn't coming back to DC. I think for him, I think he went to championship to Middlesbrough and picked up like a season-ending injury. So it's not that there's been skill's been an issue necessarily. Maybe he just can't quite break into the Nottingham Forest lineup, but it's been injury has been a big part of it. So I think seeing that. Yeah, I mean, it's disappointing considering how good he did look when his short stint here in DC. But at the same time, I don't know.
He's like, Wayne's gone? I'm not interested. No, thank you.
I mean, it's just like why I people get into those types of moods, and I'm just kind of like, it's just situations change, things change. I'm kind of happy with the direction I'm seeing from the team so far with player acquisitions that maybe it's bothering me a little bit less than it should. We'll get into that. I'm sure we'll get into that. But let's talk about stuff that's like not so good. On the field, things seem to be getting better, but off the field, things seem to be a mess. So if you're not quite 100%, or you're wondering why DC United was playing in Philly earlier this week against Santos, a home game, even though I think they were the road team because of how they were the road team because of how the seating works. Because they were playing Santos, they of course play at home. It's a weird thing about the Leagues Cup. It's just such a weird tournament. I'm not going to lie about it. It's a weird tournament, guys. But DC United having to go to Philly because the field, which has been terrible for the Spirit, terrible for DC, terrible for the U.S. women's national team. I believe they were asked about it, and one player said no comment. So
Mallory Swanson said it's like kicking dirt on corners.
Yeah, it's bad. Of course, a lot of events have been happening. The Washington Defenders. There has been rugby. There has been, I think, the last thing was like the Broccoli Festival. Apparently,
yep.
So the team packing events into that stadium, which we've talked about.
As they're supposed to do.
Yeah, as they're supposed to do. They have, I believe, part of the contract is they have to hold a number of events, right? Like They have to. Which is
why they have the weird movies on the lawn and yoga. Mm-hmm. That's why. Those kind of things.
Yeah, just to get those events in. But also, the team needs to figure out better methods to take care of the field. They put out a statement apologizing to fans and essentially saying, "Oh, but we really wanted to, we're gonna put processes in place to take care of the field now." And I'm like, okay, if that process isn't like a more durable field, we have heard from, I think, some fans that made the trip, or some people that maybe were talking to people in the team, there is going to be some sort of video or production sort of outlining what's going to happen with the field. We'll see what happens. But overall, the response to my statement was, okay, well, why weren't those already in place? And as good as things, like as bright as I think things are going on the field, like we're on a four-game unbeaten streak, winning streak if you want to include a penalty shootout win, these types of things really like just kind of weigh down the entire team and weigh down and really make you wonder, are things going in the right direction? Or is this just more kind of false gold? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I am in no way concerned about this.
Okay.
At all. I feel like they got a little bit over their skis. They also probably weren't expecting the July of 100-degree days that we've had that probably fried the grass even worse than it was. I think they probably just overscheduled. They have too many teams that utilize this, and I think that they maybe just should have gotten a little bit earlier on the replace. I think they were just so, like, I bet you they were like, oh, we'd love to do this earlier, but we've actually scheduled so many events for the end of July that there isn't a time in which the field would get a chance to bed in. So I don't think it's money saving. I think it was just a logistical boo-boo that occurred. I mean, if they weren't going to do it, if they were just going to be like, we can't replace it till the end of the year, we just got to go with it. We're just going to spray paint the dirt, deal with it. Then I would be like, this is a big problem. This is a concern. Well, so that's my take on it anyway.
Well, are you going to be okay? So you have all these events. I believe Golf reported the team is looking at getting a hybrid field installed. Is that going to happen this time? Is that what they're installing? If they are, then okay.
I bet.
Then okay. If they're just laying down the same sod, then I'm going to be upset. This team also is going to have DC Power is going to start playing, which you talk about the number of events like they need to held. I keep wondering, is this just like, look, we're just going to fund this team just to get our events up? We'll see what happens with the quote unquote the UFL and the DC Defenders. I think a lot of the buzz has gone out of now that Dan Snyder doesn't own the Washington Commanders. That felt very much like a team to go to be like, I'm going to support an American football team as like an FU to Dan Snyder. That doesn't really exist anymore.
It has fallen apart pretty quickly. I would agree.
Yeah, the buzz is no longer there. So we'll see what happens with that. I don't know. It feels like logistical things like this just kind of keep happening with this team. As much as you want to think that this team is turning a page, moving in a new direction, these types of things come up, and it makes you go, oh, come on. Like, you're a grown-up team. You're a professional team. You're a professionally run organization. You should have your field in mind when you're scheduling events, when you're planning events. And I understand you have restrictions. You're trying to maximize the use of that stadium. Taxpayers paid for it. I get all of that. Figure out a way to be smarter. I don't know. Or install a better field. I don't know. And I don't abide by the whole, like, it's hot. It's hot in the summer. I think that's like, of course it's hot in the summer. We're living in a global warming like era where it's getting exceedingly hot. I don't know. I don't agree with your take. I think this is still embarrassing. Hopefully they've learned their lesson. I think at this point, a statement's not going to do it. Actually doing it and actually, performing and keeping that field active is what's going to convince me. I don't know. That's how I feel. It's upsetting in a lot of ways, but on the field, things are going swimmingly. We'll talk mostly Santos. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's bizarre world. It's the backwards. Everyone's all the vibes on the internet are like, this team is killing it right now. But the off the field, I'm embarrassed. I'm noticing that on Twitter a lot.
Yeah, it's strange times we're living in.
Agreed.
Let's talk briefly, I guess, about Atlanta. That's been a little bit in the past, so maybe the memory bank's not as big on that game. What's that?
I said, "Oh boy."
Am I going to challenge you a little bit, John?
No, don't do this. Don't challenge me.
I will challenge you.
Don't do that.
DC United 3-3 game, winning on PKs against Atlanta.
Oh yeah.
Now you remember.
Now I remember.
Dominic Baji getting the start. This was, I believe, obviously we won't count the Celtic game, but this was.
Please don't.
Yeah,
please do not. Although I will note that they beat Chelsea and Man City both by 4 goals in the subsequent games after that. So good company.
We're as good as Man City. There we go.
There you
That's
go.
what we'll
That's
say.
what you can take away.
But David Schneider getting the start. I'm trying to recall. Like I've more to say about him on the Santos game. I don't recall him really doing all that much, kind of being in the defense. I thought Badji ran a lot. I think, like you said, I do think we're seeing this team I think we're starting to see the development of, and I think it really became more profound in kind of the Santos game in that they are really just getting a bunch of guys that can kind of run around Benteke. And that's kind of the game plan. And I think it actually is kind of working. They're seeing
That's a good game plan.
Yeah.
That's decent. It's working and it's a good idea. Well, use the asset while you have it, but while not also, that's not resorting to long ball tactics, which a lot of people complained about. It's just saying, all right, well, what kind of player complements this guy? Well, we've got him. And then let's use him.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously the 3 goals that DC scored, they also gave up 3 goals. One of which a banger from Jared Stroud, and then Jared Stroud also getting on the end of a pretty poor defensive play, throw a direct ball over the top, and hey, you take that opportunity. Alex Bono playing the ball over the top, and then of course Christian Benteke winning it off a set piece on that goal. So all intents and purposes, a good offensive performance from this team. Defensively, I think they were, again, kind of a little bit on the weak side. They were getting beat a lot. I think McVay particularly didn't have a good showing. He also was not on the field against Santos, but I don't think
I'm remembering
the
Rios goal. The first goal for Atlanta was not as bad defense. The Lobanitze goal from distance, I think, was like a poor clearance. And then also the penalty was stone cold and stupid.
Yeah, and the going back to I think that's where David Schnegg really didn't cover himself in glory. I think he was struggling a little bit, kind of figuring out when to press up. He was caught up. There was a lot of space on that left side. He tried to come back, and I think he kind of left a lot of his defensive teams hanging. I think those are things that are going to come back as you learn what your team can do and what they can't do. So
he's a game and a half in. That part. It's like the individual skill is something you can analyze. The sort of how well you play with your teammates is something that you can't, not yet anyway. Not worth it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was unfortunate the team couldn't quite see that game out, I guess. They gave up a PK. They have to go win it on PKs. It ends up working out in the end, but I think it's kind of,
It does. And I just want to say, like, before, other than the gameplay, I think that this team won in penalties was actually really good. I think that's a really a good confidence builder. I think they got the 7th man. I think they went pretty far deep. Players that you would not have assumed were going to be taking penalties were able to do so. So that part's good. I think that losing penalties bums you out in a way that persists a little bit, and winning them makes you feel like you're better than maybe you are. So I'm glad that they got that and they carried it over and made a little confidence. That was good.
And good on I think McVay's the one who gives up the penalty. He also gets the cheeky little
he gives the Panenka right down the middle.
Does the Panenka to score the goal. Of course, he's also the one who gives up the penalty. Remember, he kind of
who else took? I'm trying to remember. Benteke took. Pedro
missed.
took. Yep. Pedro.
Perane took.
Santos. And then McVay, I think. Did Herrera take one?
I don't recall. I don't
think he did.
Yeah.
So I'm just really, really glad they did it. Alex Bono got a chance to, save I think he saved 2, right?
Yeah. Two saves in the penalty kicks. He also has a save during the game. So the McVay penalty, he saved it, which ended up being really important to this team picking up the draw. Otherwise, this might have been kind of like another sort of late game collapse.
Yep.
So all in all, I think a solid performance. I think it's good that this team appears to be kind of turning a corner as far as how bad things looked, just literally a month ago. So I think that's all good. And, then it leads up into the game against Santos, which we thought would be at Audi Field. It ends up being in Subaru Park in Philadelphia. And, okay, let's get this out of the way. Santos are a bad team right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think I saw some triple-digit numbers, too, coming onto the field. So this was not – I think this was a team that maybe was going to go out and be like, all right, let's give it our best shot. And if things aren't going well, then we're just going to kind of bail on the whole thing. That's kind of the vibe I got from the team. Santos looked pretty poor, and DC were, but to their credit, DC were clinical. Benteke gets the first goal. I thought Schnegg showed a little bit more in this game. He was sort of able to sort of establish the press. I think also it's helping. I think him out there is helping Ted Kudu-Pietro, who probably had his best game of the season.
He did.
This looked like 2023 Ted again,
and not just because of the goal either. I think he really just could see the danger. And I also want to talk about Pirani too.
Yeah, you want to talk about Pirani?
I want you to talk about him.
Looking like Ronaldinho out there, creating chances and everything.
I loved it.
Ted Kudu-Pietro was great. I thought he was moving the ball well. Klick, I thought, also looked like a designated player out there. Gets the assist. Apparently wasn't happy to get subbed off, but it's kind of weird. I don't know what that was all about. Herrera gets the cross in on the first goal to Benteke. Nice finish from him. He's finishing with his feet now, which is like a new thing for him. It's not just in the air.
He heard you guys talking mess, and he's like, fine. No more headers. I'm out.
All with the feet. The second goal, of course, comes from Ted Kudu-Pietro right up halftime. I think that was a real kind of backbreaker for the team. Overall, the team
they gave up right at that point. You could definitely tell the souls left the body. They're like, "Where's the bus? Get me on the bus."
Yeah, and then of course Ted Kudu-Pietro again on the third goal, winning the ball in the box, playing it to I believe that was to Stroud, right? I think it was Stroud.
I remember.
Yeah, and then Stroud crossed it into Dahomey, who finished. Let's talk about Dahomey. I thought he was good in this game. And again, I know the opponent. I know everything. I think maybe – I don't know whether I'm in, let's bring him back territory yet. He still costs a lot of money, but he kind of looks good now that he doesn't have to play, wing back. And I think we all wonder, what is his role going to be? Is he going to go back to the bench? He looks like he's starting, and the team looks very good when he's out there. Just kind of another person that's just kind of buzzing around Benteke, occupying space, occupying chances. I'll be curious to see what opponent we get. I think it'll either be Mazatlan or it'll be either New England or Nashville. My guess would be Mazatlan because I think New England, because then we get an actual home game potentially.
Yeah, that and I am annoyed when Leagues Cup is just another MLS fixture with a fresh coat of paint. It's just much more fun and cool when you're playing something you're never going to play again.
Yeah. So again, we'll see what happens in that game. That game is on Tuesday. So I don't know what that means for when DC plays. I think they might then move to the last because you're not going to have. I think it is not until Tuesday. It's either Monday or Tuesday is when Nashville plays New England for that sort of final group stage game. So I think that means the game probably will be Saturday or even later. I think so. We'll see what kind of happens there. Whether we get arrested Mazatlan or we get maybe a little tired Nashville or New England. So anything else you want to add about this game? You want
just to say Dahomey is. Depending on where you can get him on a salary, he is so much more useful when he has no defensive obligations whatsoever. I think it's freeing him up a lot. And the goals he's not creating a lot of chances for himself. He's just putting himself in the right spots, but there's value in that too. There's a reason why up until recently, there were no players with more than 2 goals other than Benteke, or 3, whatever the number was. It was the second scorer was 2 or 3. And the reason for that is that Benteke was getting the bulk of the service, but when it wasn't him, there were not the players sort of making those runs to be in a dangerous spot. So I'm glad that he has done that. I think his star is ascended. We were talking before about the players who were definitely on the way out, like Martin Rodriguez and Dahomey, and their stars are kind of going in a different direction. Dahomey is sort of trending up; his stock is going up, and I think Rodriguez has kind of faded out here. But it's good that we have an alternative goal scoring opportunity, and it's letting the bench players be where they're supposed to be. It's sort of delineating out talent where it should be. Jacob Murrell is not being forced to play more than he should. It's about best players on the field. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the players that have been brought in has kind of changed the style of the team a little bit to where it doesn't really suit Rodriguez. Though I would have been interested with how much DC were kind of controlling the ball. I would have been interested to see Rodriguez in this game to whether he could actually be that sort of creator. But I do agree. I think his stock has maybe fell a little bit as other players have come in.
Did you listen to was there a post game press conference for the Santos game that you saw by any chance?
If there was, I did not listen to it, or I did not see it. So
I'm very curious about Dominic Baggio not making the trip. I don't know if it was an injury, because they had once again 2 goalkeepers on the bench, so he could have done. I'm just curious why they didn't bring him. Speaking of players not on the bench, Tyler Miller continues to be MIA. Nothing in the injury report about his unavailability. We've already got they're putting 2 keepers on there. They could have put 3, I guess, if they wanted to, or just left Crockford at home, but they're not doing that either. So I still think, when is this window closed? Like when the roster deadline is
August 14th or 12th.
Okay.
I think it's 14th. Yeah.
If it's so, I think pretty soon we're going to know. I still think he's on his way out. I think he's annoyed at maybe not getting his chance back, and Alex Bono holding on to it, and him wanting, he thinks he's a starter. Then I think if you can find some place to take him, then you should take him. I
have some idea that I think it could be like San Jose. San Jose need talent. They need players. A goalkeeper is probably, for all, as much as whether we think Tyler Miller, he can start he has been an MLS starter.
No, for sure.
And he's cheap. He's like $400,000. That's a cheap way to sort of get a player on your cap who doesn't cost all that much and get a starting caliber keeper. I don't know. That's just a thought. I think San Jose would potentially be a good landing spot for him.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah. So,
and we mentioned it, but Prani was dribbling players all day long. No end product necessarily, right? I don't think he had an assist or anything.
He had a shot creating chance, man. Like first
That's
opportunity
true.
comes on, he passes the ball, I think to Mural, who takes the shot and actually gets a shot on target. But I'm like, hey,
Trending
man.
up.
Just a lot of dribbling for him. I think I don't know what his status is going to be with this lineup. I think you're going to see him shift higher up the field because he's just not a number 10 creator.
Nope.
But maybe he can be a guy that can buzz around. He can finish some chances. I think maybe you're going to see possibly him shift a little bit on the field until he can maybe develop some of those goal scoring chances. I don't know. Remains to be seen.
Yeah.
Remains to be seen with him. Anything else we want to dissect from this game? Anything we want to talk about the upcoming Leagues Cup? Or
I'm just very excited for my favorite tournament to go to. Actually, all right. So let's talk about we teased it like saying there are protests against this tournament from some of the supporters groups. I think I'm trying to remember which is St. Louis one of them.
St. Louis is one of them. Yep.
So here's what I'll say. Don Garber made this point, and people were like, "It wasn't in Atlanta. They were playing in outside of Atlanta, like 45 minutes away at a college, which I think they used to play. Maybe the Atlanta United 2 games get played there. Kennesaw State, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's like Kennesaw Stadium is what it's called. It may be for Kennesaw State.
Okay, so the argument is, look at them. They played this. Was it a semifinal or quarterfinal? I think it was a semifinal.
It was quarterfinal.
Whatever. Mm-hmm. It was a knockout game, a tournament, and they played it in an alternate site, and attendance was sparse. And Don Garber's like, look at this. This tournament is not serious. People said, well, it's not serious because they played it where they played it. But here's the deal, folks. They could have played it at Mercedes-Benz too, but they also knew that the turnout would be poor. The attention and eyeballs and passion exists for this tournament now, mostly on Twitter. Like the turnout for these games has not been good. The media deal is bad, right? YouTube is bad as a source of having things. It's widely accessible, but it's just not good. It's good for people that are on Twitter, but it's bad for everyone else that's watching soccer in a conventional way. I agree with Don Garber. I feel like that their Leagues Cup is doing better, and there's obviously the full marketing might of MLS and whoever else behind this tournament, so that helps. But there's still there's some matches of like garbage MLS teams and garbage Mexican teams, and they're still faring better than a USL or an Open Cup quarterfinal or semifinal, including an MLS team. So I don't know how you fix US Open Cup, but I do agree that it requires fixing. And I think from Don Garber's perspective and the owners, it's not just Don Garber, right? Like Don Garber did not act on his own to kill US Open Cup. Many of the owners were supportive of this. I don't know how they fix it, but it cannot just continue as it was if they're going to keep this Leagues Cup, which they're obviously going to, right? That's not going away. It's going to happen forever. Maybe you don't think so. Maybe not.
I don't know. I keep wondering about like you look at Santos wasn't alone in being Mexican teams that have just done so poorly in this tournament, so bad. Like I think we are going to have a case where we are going to I think we could potentially have an all MLS semifinal. I think the mood for this tournament has soured a lot in Mexico. I don't know if it'll go away. I think there is a lot of broadcast money to it. I think you are going to see Mexican teams do what they did, which is like play reserves. Look, they say, look, we're bottom table, we're bottom of the Liga MX. That's where our money is made. That's where most of our goose is cooked. Yes, yep. I think Liga MX originally signed up for this. They thought we're going to dominate this tournament. We're going to get all 3 of those Champions League spots, and it hasn't happened that way. And
so do you think they'll pull out? You think they'll pull out if the teams continue to not care about this at all and just kind of take a dive? Like, will the league be like, this is not good enough for us. We don't want this. I think
potentially you could see some games start moving to Mexico. I don't know, honestly. It feels like the business interests of the league maybe are against the sporting aspect of this. I don't know. I don't know what the solution is because honestly, this Leagues Cup has just kind of been. I mean, I've watched it because it's late night and
it's on,
and there's soccer, and that's usually how I operate. But I mean, I would say like the excitement level's not there. I mean, and obviously last year the big excitement reason was Messi was this was Messi's arrival.
That screws him a little bit.
Yeah, and so now this feels like a little bit less so. I don't know. My team is still in it, so I'm still going to watch, and then maybe once Correct. He's out, maybe I'll stop paying attention.
I do agree that they do need to have some games in Mexico. I think that is silly. That they can fix and do. That's not impossible from any perspective, from a timing, a TV perspective, time zones, anything. You can make that happen. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like the U.S. Open Cup is a nut that still needs to be cracked. It's not right now the way it is. And I think probably money is the answer. I think large amounts of prize money to make it more amenable to the teams and maybe coming in later, like maybe having the MLS clubs come in later in the tournament after some of although the fans like the 1/16 seed type matchups. But as far as the league goes, like this is a waste of our time.
Yeah. And the biggest reason is, well, I would even ask the draw. The draw of this was supposed to be too, like, the Mexican League, the Liga MX teams coming in. The popularity, I will say, of Liga MX has started to dip a little bit. It is not the juggernaut it was like 5 years ago. I think they came out, used to be Liga MX would be the highest watched league. It has actually fallen a little bit. I think Premier League has kind of overtaken it in America. And
welcome to our world, welcome to our world, Liga MX.
And so I think the popularity is taking a dip. You're not seeing the crowds that show up to watch MLS versus Liga MX teams. I don't know. I think you'll see them continue to do it. I think they want to have that relationship. They understand that's the closest geographical league that's bigger. I think until you start playing this in Mexico, Santos still have a team I think that was worth like $36 million or something like that according to the transfer market. They're just playing really poorly right now. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. It's interesting times. I don't know if MLS is going to maybe go back and be a participant in the Open Cup. Maybe they'll be like, and maybe it'll be just hey, this was just because we had all these tournaments that were going on. And, we had all these, we had the Copa America, we had Euros, we had Olympics, we had all of this stuff kind of just combining at once. And then now that all that's done, we're going to go back and do the Open Cup. So that's going to be an interesting storyline to follow, I think towards the end of the season as to what exactly is going to be. Will the MLS teams be back? I think they need to figure that out soon. They need to literally lock that in, and it needs to stay locked in because, also I think it impacts, amateur teams wanting to compete or even USL teams. So, and even USL is kind of trying to prepare for it. They've started the League One, of course, had their tournament. They want to expand that to the championship. I think they'll do that next year. They might even double time it because they're not sure what the status of the Open Cup is going to be. So remains to be seen. But yeah, the thing is, I want to like Leagues Cup. I do. I really do. Because these tournaments are fun. It's fun to see us go against. It's fun to see us play Santos Laguna. Right now, like we'd be playing like our, return leg against New England Revolution. And the season does as a whole kind of like stop. Like it kind of like loses interest in August. So I think having something as kind of a mid-season distraction is good in some ways. So. All right, let's. So you want to talk NWSL at least a little bit? I'm sorry I was not in Richmond. I would have loved to have gone to this event to see Washington Spirit play Chicago Red Stars in City Stadium in Richmond. Crowd seemed like it was decent. Of course, there was none of your U.S. Women's National Team players are there. It's definitely reserves. I maybe had some hopes. I'm like at the beginning, I'm like, oh, maybe the Spirit are going to like rock this thing, and we're going to be like just like the most in-depth team. And then losing to Gotham, I think after that, really, I think it was very unlikely they were going to get that spot. I think it would have required Chivas to beat like Gotham, and that wasn't going to happen. So
yeah, Jonah had said like this was not a tournament that he really cared about, and that was borne out. He had a lot of interesting comments too. I was reading his post-game comments, just sort of like he is extremely unsatisfied with. I mean, it's a loss, obviously, but like his standards appear to be very high, and the way he expects other players to play. They had to change formations because we have too many strikers. We have no players to play in the pockets. We miss players that play in that position, so we had to do with what we had. I tried to put Chloe coming inside from the left and McKenna on the 10, but those players are wide players. They don't create chances in 1v1 up the middle. The focus is Kansas City. Being healthy is the most important thing, so that's what we do. So yeah, I mean, it's great for some of these players to get minutes that would not have otherwise gotten them. I think that can only do well, and no one got hurt, which is the probably most important thing to take away. Kate Wiesner was injured, but didn't get injured due to this. Paige Mateer had to play left back, which is funny. I'm sure she loved that. I wish I had gone to the game to ask her how much she loved that. But yeah, I mean, you're using a lot of national team call up replacements, similar to the way they did against Chivas and in Gotham. Along the back line, Olivia Stone, Jenna Butler are players who will be gone tomorrow, or whenever the Olympic players get back. Starts in 90 minutes for Heather Stainbrook. Chloe Ricketts gets 60 minutes. To be determined. Certainly something to look at. There's Espy Morgan is available in the Kansas City game. That'll probably she can play along the back line. Also, I'll be interviewing her next week. I guess while I'm in Louisville, so I'll be doing that from the road. My favorite place to do interviews, apparently. But she apparently principally wants to play center back. So the question is, does Anna Boutel or Tara McKeown cede position? I think Boutel is the one that fans are thinking it would be, but who knows? I think McKeown has had. I don't want to call it a dip in form, but I've seen her make more mistakes in the last month or two than she did at the beginning of the season. So something to watch out for. Either way, I think now the next game is August. Well, there's going to be the friendlies first. That's a lie. The next league game is the 25th. I think they play Arsenal on the 18th, which is going to be cool. I'll be there for that. Yeah, that'll be fun. That'll be a fun game. Yes, but their next game is not till August 25th against the KC Current. Of course, by then, presumably all the players will be back. I don't know if they'll get a break. If they win the gold medal, of course, U.S. Soccer loves to then throw in those friendlies, those celebration friendlies. I hate that. I hate it so much. I hate it the most. It's one thing taking them forever. That's okay. You're going to do it, but there is. I mean, to their credit, I think. Well, no, that's not necessarily much of a break. Now, there's not much of a break. I'm just like, where can they squeeze this in? Maybe so they do have a break. Maybe it'll be like October. There's October 20th. And then the last game will be November 2nd. So that's conceivably you could fit an international window into that. It bums me out that they're unable to play a full strength lineup against Arsenal. I want to see that, right? I want to see them go best 11 against Arsenal, but not going to happen.
I mean, I don't know, man. They might lose. They might lose against Japan, and then they'll be back basically pretty quickly. So, I mean, this depends on what happens. Obviously, we hope they don't lose.
Hal Hirschfeld ready to go. She's not going. Obviously, there's Corey Bethune has gotten minutes, which I don't think anyone expected, either she or her manager. I think, but injuries to Jaden Shaw is the player that got injured. Correct?
Yep, Jaden Shaw.
Yeah. Yeah, Trinity's had a wonderful Olympics. I think she's really kind of it's not coming out. It's not a coming out because she really is probably pretty far out. But I think from probably her best tournament for a national team. Probably,
I just want to, I just want to call out. So let's talk a little. Let's talk a little U.S. women's national team. They're in the Olympics. Olympics is a big deal when it comes to women's soccer. The Washington Spirit. The United States women's national team cruising through their group, 9 points, really putting on a hammering against Germany, like 4-0. Emma Hayes coming in and really just kind of making a difference. It's been impressive, I guess, the way that she's kind of come in and already kind of getting this team to kind of move as one. I guess that's a question. You look at Vlatko. And, we talked about club versus national team difference. Like, what is it about a coach that can just come in and make that type of difference? Or is this a case? And this is what I think it is. I think it is more of a case of Emma Hayes actually turning the page and being like, all right, Alex Morgan, thanks, but we need to start thinking about next season. I appreciate you, but this is about, and that was like, there were people that were really upset about that when people in the know were kind of like, okay, it's time. Like, we need to kind of move on from this. But what does it sort of say about Emma Hayes that she kind of turned that page? And, could a coach of like Vlatko have realized that and done that sooner and maybe things would have been better? Or is this just like, is it always just a case of timing? Because I do feel like, I'm not sure how much a national team coach maybe bringing an identity, maybe getting everybody kind of happy and harmonious. But other than that, and maybe doing like simple kind of tactical things, like other than that, I'm not sure like much like Emma Hayes is actually doing, even though the results and the turnaround and how good this team has looked through their group stage has been impressive. I
think it's just a matter of picking a player with a high enough international profile that doesn't feel overwhelmed by the job. Mm-hmm. I think she was, 1A, 1B best women's coach in the world from a club perspective. And I think that she was ready for this jump and does not see the need to she's here to kill the sacred gods. Basically. She's like, I don't really care. I'm new around here. She was probably given I don't imagine she's doing this on her own. I imagine U.S. soccer is probably also like, hey, we had a huge disappointment, one that we can never have again. What do you think we need to do? And she's probably saying, we need to get younger. We need to get faster. We need to get hungrier. We need to get all these things. And I can do that. And it's going to mean breaking some eggs. Are you okay with that? And U.S. soccer probably like, yep, do your thing. That's the way we're paying you.
Yeah. And also, I think having a player of that profile and a player willing to go make those types of decisions and say, you know what, I think it's time to turn the page. Obviously, I think maybe some of the things that maybe people aren't happy about is bringing in Corbin Albert. I think that's been probably one of her more controversial moves. But to the team and to her credit, they've kind of all just said, yeah, she can help us. We're going to kind of roll with it. We've had discussions with her. And, if the players who are on that team, who I know there are still some very, very active players when it comes to LGBTQ and those issues, if they're like, yep, it's fine, we've worked it out, then okay. I think that's all you can really say at this point. And maybe allow some people to change, but I don't know if that's, I don't know if that's possible. And I'm not saying what Corbin Albert did was good or anything, but
I think this team historically has not been shy of speaking their mind overall. I guess the fact that this roster is a bit more young and unproven, so maybe don't feel as secure in their place. Mm-hmm. But I was going to say, we've not heard the typical sort of grousing that can occur within the team when a player that's disruptive is there. I think the fans are certainly more upset maybe than the team. We'll find out later. Maybe it comes out, that the team was just as mad as other folks. But either way, she's not going anywhere. The coach has made the decision. And like you said, they've sort of came out. They've said what they're going to say about it. She's going to keep getting booed.
Yeah.
And that's just going to be the way it is. And the games will happen and she'll play. And that's what's going to happen.
And rightfully so, until you show that you have grown. And it's I'm not at all saying like, oh, everybody should just be fine with Corbin Albert. I think people still need to ask the question, have you actually grown? Have you actually changed? And you need to show it, because now the onus is upon you to show it. And I don't know if she ever will, but it is what it is right now as far as where her place is on the team. And certainly Emma Hayes, that's what Emma Hayes thinks. So
yep.
We'll see kind of what happens with the team. I do agree the harmonious atmosphere of the team is certainly something to watch. I think the TikTok videos they've created, I'm sure much to the anger of Carly Lloyd, about how that is not what you do. But I think the biggest thing I've gotten from this is I remember like the discourse around the women's team was all like, oh, this is like the world is getting better. Everybody, this might be the end of U.S. domination. Like they're not going to be good enough. Like, this team is like not good enough. And then you see when you get a coach in here who introduces some things, who gets things going in the right direction, suddenly this team looks like world beaters. They look like they can go out and beat anybody. We'll see how they do sort of throughout the rest of this tournament. I think regardless of what happens tomorrow, I think this has been a success. I think you've seen this team start to come out in games and dominate the way they used to, which was certainly not the case under Vlatko.
Nope.
And that, for me, gets me excited. I'm not sure whether they end this with a gold medal. They might not. They might. But I think it does get me excited for the upcoming Women's World Cup and to seeing what they can sort of do. I think that's going to be sort of the culmination of everything. I think with the Olympics, a lot of like silly things are just starting to like come about. The fact that there's only 18 players, the fact that I didn't even realize this till the tournament started. I was like, there's only 12 teams in this thing. I'm like, that's ridiculous. Like it should, in the men's 16, and they're like, oh, we can't afford it. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
If a player is suspended for disciplinary reasons, you're not allowed to replace them on the 18.
Well, and here's what I don't understand. They already bring 4 alternates. So just make the stupid roster 22 players. What is the big deal? I don't understand this idea of like, well, we have to make it 18. There has to be some sort of, I think there has to be some sort of like the Olympics like awards prize money to players who like actually make appearances. So there has to be some sort of like, we don't want to like award prize money, or we want to save a little bit on prize money. It's just ridiculous in a lot of ways. So, okay. And they came out with a statement like, oh, we can't afford it. I'm like, you can't afford it?
That's not a good answer.
All right, folks. I think that's going to do it. Enjoy the game. We have, obviously, by the time you're probably listening to this, the game will probably be over because it's out at 9 a.m. The women play at 9 a.m. So we might have a completely different perspective on the team.
Yep.
But again, guys, thank you so much for listening. We will catch you guys probably not next week because there's no DC. There's no Spirit. Probably won't be a show.
Another week off for the show. Or this wasn't a week off because we said that on Monday, and here we are Friday. So next week, a real week off.
A real week off, yes.
And that's not true because I'm interviewing Esme Morgan next week. Lie. So there will be an episode for you next week if you're a Patreon.
Yeah, there'll be an episode for Patreon. So join patreon.com/RFKRefugees if you want to join up. We don't know when the DC Leagues Cup game, so planning on the show probably the Monday after that game, which we presume will be next week. So,
yep.
Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll catch you guys next week. Vamos.
Vamos.